Welcome to the Jamodi podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. What's one thing that makes your program different?
So I asked a kiddo. I sat down and thought about it myself because I think something about certain programs is hard to explain if you're not in the mix.
Yeah, I get that.
And it's hard to understand. And his response, he's one of our, he's a junior. He's a really good player. He's been around me a lot. He said player led. We do a ton of player-led stuff, like so much so I gave his senior brother last year the clipboard during a timeout because he was trying to explain something, and it was one of those profound moments between the kids, not between me and the kids or my sister and the kids, but just being between the kids. He's diagramming it on the board in the middle of a district game, timeout, tight ball game, whatever. And I have no idea what he's talking about. None. He's got all kinds of X's, all kinds of lines.
Lob play for himself, and you're like, oh, crap. What do we?
The kids, though, the kids are like, yeah. They went out and got a steal. And I'm
Nice.
like, hey, man, well, as long as y'all got it, that's great. Now when people ask me what makes y'all different, I just think the freedom that I allow them to go do whatever it is that they feel necessary in that moment, in the part of the game which they all care so much about, which is offense, right? If you feel like pulling Steph Curry type threes, man, do you. My one thing is make sure you practice it. Make sure you have really engulfed yourself in the player development aspect of like, I've worked on this. I know I can do it. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is, and I do a lot of kind of self-evaluation as far as when I watch film, I make sure to watch myself. When they shoot those shots that everybody swears are bad, I don't even say bad. Honestly, the only time I say shot selection is when I say I'm not talking about shot selection. Now, we do talk about it, but it's just a very different verbiage that we've kind of come up with. And it's not one absolute thing. It's just kind of a way of meandering around the topic so that the kiddo doesn't get fearful. They have the freedom to go do it. I've had a kid pull up, we're up 7 with 2 minutes to go, tight ball game, and he pulls up from a 3. It's 1-on-4, and he pulls up from 3. He forgot that the 5th guy was behind him, and he blocked it. And, I make sure to never take kids out after they do that because I think it just destroys their confidence. And, a coach, I believe, asked me, how did you approach that? I let him keep playing, play through it. Because that's one thing you'll notice about at least our kids. They don't look at me while the game is going on, as I don't want them to. They're free. Like, that's y'all's time. My time is in practice. If I need to talk to you, timeout, free throw, whatever, that's when I'll talk to you. I'll get your attention. And then the other thing, as I'm sitting thinking about that question, is I think what I believe is a fundamental at Keller High School is different than maybe what other people think is fundamental. And what I mean is, like, to me, a reverse pivot is no longer fundamental because I set the base 3 years ago. Bam. Well, I guess technically with some of the kids 5 years ago because they've been in their eighth grade, whatever it may be, right? But like a same hand, same foot, reach out, finish, that's fundamental. You're going to see that a lot. The hook pass, the ear to elbow hook pass, like that's fundamental. Whereas a lot of coaches would say, man, that is an advanced skill. So I think the kind of the level or the shelf of where our fundamental base is at Keller is different. If that makes any sense whatsoever. Um, and so that's what I believe. And then I think it's really just how we do things. I tell our kids all the time, like being at practice is not a separator. It's not. Showing up is not a separator. Getting shots up is not a separator. Now, how you do it can be a separator. Or am I being intentional about what I'm doing? Am I shooting at the game pace? It makes me think of uh, the speed shooting drill that you showed at the Mavs clinic. Like, are you when it's necessary to shoot fast? Are you shooting fast? Are you paying attention to your change of pace, change of direction? Um, just different stuff like that. I think it is in our willingness, and I guess in a sense, mine, to never skip on individual player development, whether it's personal growth, which we do every Monday, on the court and in the weight room. Like, bar none, the kids will tell you if it's between Coach Weir's set plays and getting some skill work, player development work in, we're going to the player development. We'll come. The plays will come in line they will come in later. We'll figure that part out. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I've come up with. Like I said, for me, it's really hard to explain. It's kind of one of those things like you have to see it. Because it's just at times, like if you watch our practice film, it's just a big jumble of chaotic struggle. And the kids are like looking at me when I first got there. Coach is, "Hey, what do you want me to do? I want you to massively struggle and I want you to enjoy it. And I want you to learn from it." And it's hard, that's a hard lesson for them to get. But now you see, we have two kids that'll end up playing Division I basketball. One just committed at McNeese, and one is, who knows, he's just a junior. But one of the things that a lot of the coaches have told me, Coach, they don't play with any fear. I say, yeah, because they're now there's nothing on the court. It's just like a regular game to them. There's not, there may be 8 kids on the court in practice. There may be a chair. There may be a ball. There may be, who knows what's going to be. Coach Weir may be standing in there with one of those uh, not a baseball bat, but that's what I call it, the bat, the little soft stick,
Sure.
to
Yeah.
make myself long. I may be standing in the middle with that, and they can't run me over. Uh, but just those are the biggest things that I would say is the freedom that we give, the level of fundamentals that we set, and then just our routine of how we do it. Because like everybody practices, everybody's in there working hard, everybody's working there. Now, is everybody training and working at that same level? I don't think so. I think there's a definite separator, and that's a tough thing to do because it just, as you know, it is. And it helps when our two best players are our hardest workers. They call and they say, "Coach, I need in the gym," and I'm like, "Okay." And that so it's not something that I've done all by myself. That I would by any means ever take all the credit for. We have some kids that have an unbelievable knack to show up. They, I, when I say show up, like they always show up. Hey guys, there's open gym, and you're going to have all those kids in there. I think that makes them different. As far as our kids, I give them credit all the time. Like, hey, I know that I tell you guys, everybody's practicing, but the rate and with the consistency that you guys show up is actually really remarkable.
Mm.
Because you know how it is that, even at places I was at before, you always have a couple kiddos. You're like, man, if Zach could just show up every day and get his work in. No, these kids, if you tell them, man, you need to do, we have a thing called a player triangle. You got to do that every day. They'll do it every single day. And it's really remarkable to actually watch him. Like he's an 8th grader now. He was involved in some Keller basketball activities since he was in 6th grade. And I said, "Hey, do you remember this drill?" And I started explaining. He goes, "The diamond drill." I said, "Yeah, man, you remember that?" He said, "Yeah, coach, remember we did it at 6th grade, Keller basketball school." All right, man, set it up. And he took all the kids and he set it up, and he's an 8th grader. And so I think that makes our kids different. And that's because they have great support at home. and they're really good kids. That I don't know how much that aspect of it has to do with me. So
A lot. I mean,
as
it helps a lot. Yeah.
it helps so much, and then uh, our willingness to get up there and open the gym for them,
Sure.
But our kids have done an amazing job at buying into the player development aspect of it. Now we're still working on some of the other stuff, like that's why you teach and that's why you coach. But I think if I had to sum it up, freedom, just freedom. I recently started coaching with Texas Impact and AAU, and one game I was coaching with a guy, and he said, "Man, you're serious. Like you really do give them all the freedom." I said, "Yeah, man. Like that dude right there is a Power Five Division One kid. If he can't knock down a three from right there, what are we doing?"
Yeah.
Plus, we're all going to run a set to get that guy the ball anyways. He's already got it. Let's just let him shoot it if he's open. I'm not talking about like craziness, but uh, I don't know. I think sometimes we try to make it too difficult as coaches because we want to see our play, which there are some really, really cool plays, some really cool sets. You see them every day on Twitter. It's flooded with, Euro League and G League. And I mean, this girls basketball, men's basketball, it's just flooded with all types of plays. And, when I was younger, I really got it just sunk in. I was like, oh my God, I want to run this. And before you know it, you look down on this napkin and you got 60 sets. You're like, how am I going to teach these eighth graders this? When you first start out, you're like,
Not
man,
well.
how am I going to teach these guys? So I think that's what's different now. That's just my humble opinion, and it's just the consistency of doing it. We do a shooting drill, and I remember we played. Oh man, we were playing in the Mavs tournament last year, and he was like, "Man, how do you guys shoot like that every day?" Because we do that every day. It wasn't anything that anybody probably isn't doing. It's just our willingness to give up. I think an aspect of freedom we don't think about is I'm going to give up this block of practice time and not work on 5-on-0 set plays
Shell
so
drill.
that, so that you can be a better basketball player individually. And I'm going to teach you a skill set, and I'm going to give up my time so you can have this freedom. I think that's a huge piece of freedom of giving our players freedom and empowering them that a lot of coaches don't think about. Oh, well, we need to work on this, it makes me think about zone. How you play against zone? You shoot it. Those players, I was telling somebody the other day, not one college coach has ever called me to ask me for my plays, but they have all called to get my players, right? And I'm joking with it because his son is actually going to be really, really good. But at the same time, I'm kind of serious. Like you're the same way. College coaches are going to call you. Every once in a while, they'll call you. Hey, coach, what are you doing here? I saw you did this. But at the end of the day, the coaches that are recruiters, they want the player. That's what they want. So I think it's our job as coaches to try to do our best to develop them as much as possible. And plus, on the back end of it, they're going to be able to run our sets better because they're better players.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's all my player development soapbox, man. I'm just a big advocate for it. I think that it's the way to go. I don't think it's the only way. I know there's a lot of other good ways to do things and be successful at it too. So I don't want to sound like I know it all by any means because I don't.
There's definitely coaches that I felt similarities with. There's been some where I thought, we're pretty far apart in the
Yeah,
way that
yeah,
we look at the game and how we view things. I think you and I are about as aligned as you get. And
yeah,
and I don't have a lot to say to that because or any comments. I believe it is like you said. It's not the only way to do things. Pat Riley said there's a lot of ways to do things, but this is the way we like to do things. And I think that's the way I've viewed it at Faith is, when our guys are doing things that are out, like I'm really into balance shooting right now, doing as much as I can with them on one foot, either foot, jumping from side to side on one foot, turning around on 1 foot, or even spin shooting, 360 shooting, side, anything that can mess with their balance, and from distance, shooting threes off of 1 foot. Not that they'll do that in a game, but the
Oh
benefit,
yeah.
I'm excited to see what that's like. But anytime that I hear somebody that is as excited about skill development, the freedom that you're talking about, like I want, one of my favorite compliments at Faith was a parent came up and said, your guys shoot with just an insane amount of confidence. I was like, yes, they absolutely do. It's because of how we train and how we talk to each other.
Yeah.
So all that to say, did you play for someone that led you down this path, or how did you get to where you are in your mentality?
Man, I've actually never been asked that before. I think I've just always my parents always told me to, if you want something, go get it. And what I describe myself as, I'm a dreamer. I'm in the clouds. Like there's nothing, and as long as I can remember, I've always been this way. Now, was it always true? No, but do I always believe it? Yes. Like Steve Nash was my favorite player growing up, and I was, and remember exactly where I was. One of my teammates, I was a sophomore in high school. I couldn't have been 125 pounds. I mean, not big at all, but I could shoot the rock. Can you score on Steve Nash? And without hesitation, yes, sir. Now would that be possible? I mean, at that time, probably not, but I believed it.
Yeah.
But I say that to say that's just always how I've kind of been, is I'm just a dreamer that if you tell me that this can't be done, I'm gonna try to find a way to get it done. And I think as I've gotten older, I just, you grow with this proverbial chip on your shoulder, and you have two of them, right? And you're just like, man, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. And I've always, I guess I would have to give for the most credit to my parents. I didn't play for anybody like that, that was like that. Actually, the opposite. And
Yeah.
so maybe that, in a way, the old, if you're not teaching it, even if you're not saying anything, you're still allowing it. And so maybe it was a culmination of all these people. I've honestly never been asked that. I've never even really thought about it, but it makes sense now talking about it, to where they always told me not to do stuff. And now I'm on the total opposite end. So much so is when I talk to our staff, we're not going to say things like don't shoot. We're
Right.
not going to say, hey, you can't do this. One of the ones that drives me the craziest is, well, he can't dribble. Well, have you given him an opportunity to show you that he can
Yeah.
dribble?
Train them.
Right. And it's our job.
Yep.
And so I would say a culmination of that. But I've always had, like I said, my parents have always been super supportive as far as like, hey man, if you want to go do it, go do it.
See, I asked you that because I've been asked that before. When somebody looks into what we do at Faith, and from an offensive standpoint, where we're getting 40 to 50 to 63s up a game within a 32-minute game with no shot clock, people ask questions, and so one of the ones I get is, did you play that way? And I really like what you said. I think I've never thought of it like that. I think anybody that doesn't have natural gifts, 6'8", long, not that those dudes don't work hard, but their path to success with a minimal work ethic, it sometimes there's more opportunities.
Oh,
So
yeah.
a guy, I'm 6'2.5", which that sounds great, but at the Division I level, that's not that special. And I'm really not gifted athletically. So you're talking about dreamer. That's exactly the way that I would describe myself as a young kid. I mean, fourth grade, 3 goals, freshman A team, varsity as a sophomore, Division I scholarship. The person I emulated was Pistol Pete. Pistol Pete is one of the biggest dreamers and creative players ever to play. So I modeled, I think, a lot of ways, the way I played, the way I thought, definitely the way I trained after him. But my high school coach wasn't a running and gunning, everything is free. And my college coach, my first one, crap, we ran flex. We ran flex for 3 years. Like there's not many turn your brain off systems like that. And then, my senior year with Coach Drew, we only had 6 players. So we had to run around half court holding the ball to shorten the game up and then run a set. So all that to say, yeah, I think the way this is a question for coaches to think about is the way that you're playing right now, the style of play, the culture that you have, is it in line with who you are? Like I'm a dreamer like you. I look at, we made 405 threes last year. That's great. 432 is our highest. We can beat that. I think it's possible, because in those years we missed a ton of them. Like like there's a lot of makes out there that we can still find. And I tell my players all the time, what is a miss? It's almost a make, fellas. You're almost there. And so just refreshing to hear you talk about that. And I love your answer of you're a dreamer. I've never thought about it like that. I think the style of play that you and I love, I don't know if non-dreamers can play it, because there's so much failure involved, so much out of our control that we have to be okay with, because you and I know that within that failure and that chaos, man, there's beauty there.
Oh yeah. And now that you think about it, I guess so. Steve Nash was, I thought he was super creative with the way he played and everything. But I guess the guy, the mentality, the two dudes that I actually would maybe makes a lot of sense watching our kids play now is Allen Iverson. Not all the craziness, but just the way that he was like this warrior. Fearless. And it didn't matter if he had missed 20 times, he was taking the next one. And then Jason Williams, white chocolate, right? All the flavor and all the flair and all the stuff that he did, and so obviously you can probably guess Steph Curry is my favorite player, him and Luka. Now it's like, how far is this guy's range going? And so those were the kind of dudes that, obviously not Steph because I'm way older, but like AI and those guys that, I would get the arm sleeve, man. And I was like, we're going to go at you. Cause I was small. When I was a senior in high school, I was same size as he was, 6 foot nothing, 160 pounds, but not afraid to stick your nose in there and get after it. So that's a great question. I've never really thought about it, but now that I have, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think we both learned a little something in that moment right there, just maybe about how we got here. And then there's also I think there's a level of curiosity that we need to have. I mean, it's Ted Lasso, right? Like that's one of my favorite shows. He's in the bar and he's like, I just don't think you're just not a curious person. But he talks about how he is, and I think there's some parts of my life where I'm not curious at all, and that's a good thing. And then there's other parts, especially in basketball, where I think I've always been a little like, man, is there a better way to do this? Is there a more creative way? Is there a faster way? I mean, that's where I went the Grinnell route for a couple of years, because you're talking speed and fast. Nothing's as fast as them. But there's like behind my little plaque back here, there's 6 books that I don't allow myself to read anymore, because when I read them, I tell my wife, like, babe, I was looking at the System again by Doug Porter, and I think we could do it. She's like, no, don't forget what happened last time, because there is a level of speed that unless we're recruiting our players, that they can't and our parents can't see and understand. They don't understand that you're giving up a layup, but you're going to get 3, and that it's more about pace of play. I'm rambling now because, like you, that stuff gets me really excited. But can you find a way of speed and curiosity that ultimately still leads to winning? Because I think you can go too far with that stuff, that down that rabbit hole where it's not about winning anymore. It's about an experience. I love that. Like personally, that Pistol Pete in that movie, Birth of the Legend, he looks at his dad and his dad, what are we going to do? He said, let's give them a show they'll never forget.
Yeah.
Like that just aligns with me. But then for your best players, for your team and the time and the commitment that they put in, it better translate and lead to winning. Or else, right from the beginning of our talk, you said training and trust. The training will be great, but you'll lose trust real quick.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Well, and they do at the end of the day. I mean, it's our big thing is, 1%, focus on the 1% so you can be the 1%. You mean, you've heard it, focus on the process. But at the end of the day, you got to talk about it. Hey, this is where I want to be. Got a kiddo that just committed, and that's what he told me as a sophomore. This is where I want to go. And I personally think that creates a lot of trust with him. Um, that's another freedom that we give as far as communication. Instead of just shushing our kids, we we teach them how to properly talk, right? So they come in, hey coach, what do you want? Zach, what do you want? Matt, what do you want? And they're going to give you that coach talk. I want to be the best player that I can be. I want to be the best. I'm like, listen, man, like I want you to be honest. Like be real, right? So your job is to be real, learn how to communicate freely, properly, respectfully. And on the flip side, it's our job as coaches to help you see what it's going to take to get there,
Hmm.
right? And it's going to be really, really hard. Like, hey, I want to be a Division I basketball player. Man, I'm going to tell you how hard that's about to be.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to dream for that and you're willing to work, I remember when his parents called me, Coach, do you think I would never tell you this is not a possibility? You
Yeah.
go for it. Like, do you? Now
Yeah.
just understand that you could do everything right in this game, everything, and it could still not work out. That's a tough pill to swallow, which to me, that's kind of right in line with how I view things. Like I chase perfection on a daily. I'm like the dog that chases the car down the street, think I'm gonna catch it, and then the next one and the next one every day. My grandparents had a dog just like that. But I'm cool with it because eventually, you're just going to grow and grow and grow. And I know that I'm never going to meet perfection, but I love the journey of it. And so that's the vision you're trying to get your kids to understand is like, hey man, trust this journey.
Yeah.
It's going to help you get there. So
What I like about that question, though, too, is obviously with those players that express that they have aspirations to play after high school, we want to know that. We want to hear what their plan is to get there and then guide them if their plan is off, it's not enough, and be able to hold them accountable. But I think also talking about freedom, we allow players to be honest with, what, coach? I just want to be a great high school player. I want to
yeah,
have a great high school experience. The greatest player we've ever had at Faith, he scored 2,700 points, 439 made threes. He's fifth all time in Texas and made threes. After his sophomore year, he was looking pretty good. And I said, Dalton, like, let's talk about college. What do you want? He's like, I don't think I want to play.
yeah,
I'm floored because this dude did everything that you and I are talking about, always in the gym. You're right. I think showing up every day is a skill now. I think it's a skill, and I think not everybody has it because these, especially where you and I live in Dallas, Fort Worth, these kids are busy. They
yeah,
have
they are.
everything out in front of them that they could ever want and go to within a 30-minute, time here. So for them to actually choose, prioritize to be in the gym, that's a skill. And in my opinion, it is easier to become a great player and to get whatever you want now than ever before because of all
Yeah,
the distractions. You and I had way less distractions, especially with that phone. I remember my junior year in high school getting the big Nokia that all you could do was call and text, but it was that simple text. There wasn't anything. When a kid does come and he expresses that, I just want to be great here now, and then I have other plans in my life. We also need to respect that and get alongside of them with that and not push them to do something that they don't want to do because there's a purity in that. Like at the end of the day, what do you and I want? We want all of our players to leave our program with zero regret. They gave
yeah.
their very, very best. But we have to know what they want and what is their best going to lead them to.
Yeah, 100%. We've had plenty like that. And I think it's great because I think it gives them kind of a, not to use the word freedom again, but a freedom of like, oh, okay, I'm able to tell coach that I just want to have fun, be a great high school player, and he's not going to hold that
Yeah.
against me,
He's not let
'cause
he's not letting me down. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I played for, you played for guys back in the day, like you do this because, this, that, and the other, and you were afraid, you would have been afraid to say something like that, and then it's okay because a lot of our kids, like, at least in, like you said, our area, they have so many resources, like they're going to go on and be like super successful in all kinds of stuff. Like I got two kids in the program, they're going to be like amazing engineers, you got a couple that graduated. We had a youngster that graduated last year, fifth in the class. He's out at Southern Cal, living it up, having a great college experience. Lawyers and doctors, and so there's so much more to it, and you give them that freedom to say, I'm gonna have my fun here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put my heart into it because these are my guys. But we're all, you get that collective, those collective dudes to come together as individuals and become a really good team.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.